Yeah, well, the thing is, because I mean, like the three of us, we're gonna have to make a puzzle one place somebody to do it. We might take Brian. No, he was I already know Ray, right before yeah, we're Sally, right. Okay, the hour's 10:30. We're not calling the meeting back to order. At this time, the chair would recognize Lindsay Wilson as a special request to make of the commission. I think of all the people that have spoken, I think the most eloquent by far has been Lindsay on the wind farm issue that people don't like to call the farm, but that's what it is. Lindsay, would you like to come up? Is there anybody else you want to come up with you, or you? I know how scary we are.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Better today.
Well, no, I get scared too, but looking through this. So.
Okay, I do have a request, but if I could start with just a couple of questions, because I'm trying to make clear of some things that just I personally am not familiar on. So, one of those, I know Dr. Wyrick, and I don't wanna speak on his behalf, but he had mentioned at one meeting, and then at another meeting, it was brought up, the 3-mile protective barrier for all of the, I don't know if we're referencing them as third-class cities or.
Right,
as
we
smaller
have
towns.
we have 5 of them in the county,
Okay.
and 4 of them are kind of in footprint. Bartlett somewhat is, but you got Altamont, Mount Valley, and Etna.
Okay,
They're all third-class cities.
okay. That feels strange to call them third class, so I just wanna make sure that's.
Well, see,
I don't mean it that way.
see, the size of the city sometimes varies in legal interpretation of certain things. That's why that
Gotcha.
designation's there.
Okay, so I believe that all the commissioners had said that they were open to considering that option, to implement a protective barrier for all of those instead of just Parsons, so I wondered if there had been any progress on that. I don't know if that conversation just happens during these meetings or if you guys have
We,
things going on.
it's fine, and I'll speak on behalf of the commission if I may, and since I'm chairman, I guess so. We've spoken and been dealing with things on a county level. I think one thing that hasn't been considered is what the individual cities have the right to do. And they can 3-mile zoning, just like the city of Parsons did, and that's totally up to those cities. And, the governing bodies of Altamont and Mount Valley and Etna, I don't think have given a great deal of thought to that, but that's another avenue they can take. Have they?
Yeah, the
Okay,
mayor said so, and they looked into it. Brian's
It's
the
been
council.
discussed.
okay, I didn't know.
One thing, keep in mind, the county can't put a 3-mile zone around a city.
Right.
A city would have to do the plan and then request it and go through that zoning process. Nothing stops the city from doing that, because technically all they have to do is give notice to the county, and I can't remember if it's 45 or 60 days. The county doesn't have to do anything. And since the county has no zoning, there's really nothing for them to do. So if the cities wanted to create a 3-mile zone, they have that opportunity to do so. But the counties can't do it for them because the counties don't have any power.
Okay. Okay. All right, so I guess that ties into my next question, and maybe it doesn't apply, so you can maybe help me there. But is there already, a county zoning committee of any kind? in
There is
place?
sort of
Any-
Yes.
Great
Great
Plains.
Plains.
Okay, I can,
And Mr. Morris, he's kind of not over it, but he's kind of the county's representative, in dealing with that.
okay.
So we have a board and they set up.
So I can spend some time checking more into that and because I'm not familiar
No,
with
these
what
are
exactly
good
that
questions.
covers,
These
or
are good
what-
questions.
So think of
What
it
that
like
could
this.
cover.
To have zoning, you need to have a mapped out area. So we have 3 zoning projects I know of in the county for certain. 3-mile zone around Parsons, Great Plains Industrial Park, and Big Hill. But Big Hill is a federal enclave, so it doesn't fall under the state or anything, it falls under that. So those are the 3 I know of. So anything beyond those borders, there is no zoning.
Okay, but does this committee, this Great Plains committee, would it be possible for that committee to, be an advisory or some kind of, handle additional, zoning processes beyond what they currently are handling? Like beyond the Great Plains Industrial Park or the Big Hill?
No, they couldn't do Big Hill. Big Hill's federal, it's out.
Gotcha,
So,
okay.
The way it's currently set up, the answer is no, because Great Plains Industrial Park was not created by statute, it was actually created by a charter resolution of the county, which most people have forgotten. And because it was done by a charter resolution, those powers are specifically given to it by that resolution. It is 2008, I wanna say it's 2008-12L, but I'm not positive on the middle numbers.
Some of the last action jury until-
So, here is your issue. They can't operate outside of that zone. If the county wanted to do county zoning, the problem is they haven't made a comprehensive plan. So if they tried to take the plan they currently have and extend it, that plan only works for the industrial park. It wouldn't be satisfactory for the entire county because of population densities, all water rights, everything else that's required of it. So, if a new comprehensive plan was done, you could have a zone that was just Great Plains and then the zone that was county overall. You could do county overall and just have it swallow up Great Plains. You could do it however the commissioners wanted to, but either way, to take that plan and get larger or to create new zoning would require a new resolution from the county and a comprehensive plan.
But the people are there, we would just have to have a new.
We could appoint a new board.
You'd have a zoning board, and Great Plains is an administrative board, correct me if I'm wrong, it's an administrative board, but it is subject and secondary to the county. So if the county commissioners said tomorrow, we're going to pass a resolution and dissolve Great Plains, it's gone.
That's right.
Whereas with a zoning board, there are much more in-depth positions that would have to be taken, and those positions at Great Plains are appointed, whereas a zoning board is an elected position. That initially they are appointed by the commissioners, but after that, those positions are elected.
Okay. And as far as how something like that would tie in with the city, I mean, because you're saying the city can make that decision anyway, I think from what I understood, like Edna, they had already discussed it a bit and I think maybe still are, but, time and obviously finances are a factor, and so I was just curious if there was any kind of committee, or board in place that they could utilize.
What they would have to do is, as a city commission council, however they're set up, if the county had a zoning plan and they wanted to be part of that, they could create an interlocal agreement, and then that would cover them. But if the county, let's say the county said, we want to do setbacks from cities, that would have to be, as it exists now, an agreement between RWE and the county. The problem with that agreement is it would only be valid for RWE. So if RWE sold to someone else, and we weren't absolutely sure that that clause was carried over, then the new group could just build wherever they wanted because, again, there's no zone. It also means that, if you specifically say, hey, you can't be within a mile of this, you're only talking about this section, so you have to be specific. Are you gonna include the entire county? If so, it needs to say that in your agreement, because otherwise they're gonna say, okay, on our footprint, our setback is X, but if you go to this other new footprint now, it could be X plus Y, it could be whatever. So it changes based upon location. So no, there are no commissions in place except for city councils. They can always do agreements with the county, and all those agreements have to be reviewed by the Kansas Attorney General's office.
But each city would have the right to do a 3 mile zoning around.
Correct.
I mean, that's part of it.
Correct. But they would have to do a comprehensive plan, they'd have to go through all the steps.
Each city,
Each city.
Right.
and if they collectively just utilize the same format, I'm just assuming that these cities would probably want.
It depends, the problem is your cities aren't the same. So, Chitopa's not the same size as Oswego or Bartlett. But could they possibly go together and hire a firm to get more done and then get a reduced? Maybe.
Okay. All right, well, I think, that at least helps. Those were just some of the things that I was a little foggy on.
And I appreciate you asking this. I mean, not anybody from the public can go in and address the county councilor, because he does work for the county commission. So the way you've conducted this, coming to the board and doing this with the commission's consent, that's exactly the way it needs to be done. So, Lindsay, I appreciate that.
Thank you. Okay, so with that said, I suppose, I tried to just put all these together so I wouldn't start rambling. So I'm just gonna read from my list here. Again, just sort of for my own clarification, it's my understanding that a one-year moratorium, was put into effect on this wind project in November of 2019. And I think we were off to a pretty good start on putting that moratorium to good use prior to the pandemic, which sort of put everybody at a halt, on nearly all aspects of the board appointed committee's research and community involvement. So I know they had done hosted some community meetings, and things of that nature, and then everything kinda got the brakes put on. Then in November of 2020, a 6-month extension was requested, but we ended up going with, the counter motion, which extended the moratorium only 120 days. And also, at that time, it required the Citizens Advisory Committee to present their recommendations. So even though their time or their ability to sort of host those meetings and conduct some of that research may have been cut short, that they were asked to present their findings within 90 days. And so then it was also my understanding that the 3 of the then existing committee members did submit their written findings to the commission. However, there appears to be no public record or acknowledgement from the commissioners of the findings. So that moratorium extension expired in March 12th, I believe, of 2021. Does all of that sound
I think you're,
close?
yeah, you're
so
on
far?
close, yeah,
Just for my own understanding.
yes.
Okay, so given the fact that the Citizens Advisory Committee's efforts were inhibited, by unforeseen circumstances, and given the fact that there's been, up to this point, some instability demonstrated by the Board of Commissioners here regarding this topic, I don't want it to seem or just be swept off as me continuing to beat a dead horse here.
That's all right.
Cause maybe that's what this is gonna initially come off as. But it is my request that a 12 to 18 month moratorium be put into effect for all construction and development of any industrial wind projects, in Leavitt County until the following can be completed. And so there were 4 specific things that were concerning, to me, that I feel like time would probably, help reconcile. So one of those, a comprehensive plan should be developed so that we as a county would have consistent measures of protection in place for future commercial scale or industrial wind and solar developments, who propose now or in the future to come into our county. So I think, Counselor, you answered some of my questions there just about how, the decisions that we make today could still leave the gate wide open for other developers in the future, and I think it would be in all of our best interest to be very proactive. Then my second concern, studies should be conducted and processes should be put in place regarding the 3-mile protective barrier for our smaller towns. I realize that this obviously, takes time, and although it's been brought up a couple times here, you know, that discussion doesn't.
May I hate to interrupt.
No, you're fine.
May I ask, have you spoken to any of the, council members of those 3 former communities?
I have not spoken directly to those council members. I have only heard the notes that took place at some of those
Yeah.
meetings of
Well, just Commissioner Kinsey was saying that Edna has visited this issue. I just wonder how serious some of them might be as far, yeah, let's do this.
Well, Mayor reported that day, they
Who,
are
Sam,
not interested
Marivale,
in going forward.
And maybe I
remaining
took-
neutral at this time.
at this time?
I was,
Okay.
yeah, I was thinking maybe I took some of that.
So, I didn't mean to interrupt, I
No,
just-
you're fine. Obviously, I can't speak on behalf of each of the cities or mayors or councils, but I understood, maybe I just interpreted differently, that it wasn't that, Edna wasn't interested, but more that they were concerned about not having enough time to implement something like that, and also the funding. And that had come from the mayor, so I don't know if the council members spoke of that, but, that is sort of a piece in why I am making this request. This 3-mile protective barrier that the towns really need some time to consider, and that it should include specific research and planning on funding sources. So like the ARP funds that we were just discussing, if
Sure.
each, again, I'm not an expert and I tried to glean a little bit from that prior conversation, but if the funds are gonna be appropriated to each third-class city or county-wide, I know it had been discussed before that those funds could be, I believe Counselor mentioned that they could potentially be used to put together some kind of committee or help with that 3-mile protective barrier. So since that ties into the health and the safety of our residents, and that's the entire reason for requesting that protective barrier, it seems like that would be possibly an appropriate use of those funds since they are tied into.
Well, let me ask you, everything's been on the county to this point. Now you're talking about a 3-mile zone around, Altamont, Bartlett, Mount Valley, and Edna. Has there been any discussions or anybody to approach those city councils? Because they can do without our action. Everything's been on the county so far.
Right.
But they are independent in this regard, if they wish to pursue that.
Yes, and I think, there has been some, not all by me, and so I can't speak for those other conversations, but I do believe that there have been individuals who have approached, at least Altamont and Edna. I'm not entirely sure about the others, but I think for me, I sort of wanted to get an understanding about how the ARP funds were gonna be distributed before that was a conversation that I brought up.
When you learn everything about it, please come back and tell us.
Yeah. So anyway, I think, according to information previously shared here and by leaders and council members of the aforementioned towns, that there was interest in doing it, but the project in and of itself would likely take quite some time, up to a year to complete, and quite a bit of funding. So that's where these questions about, the ability to use some of those grant funds, it is an important factor, because of course they're going to say, like, we don't have the time and the money to address this.
Well, they need to
Unless
determine
they
how
recognize-
important is this issue to them. They
Right.
want to determine, the city of Parsons decided real quick.
Yeah,
Okay, what about these cities?
right. And so I think that's, one of the reasons why more time would be valuable in this instance. And then, so my third concern was that additional research should be conducted to establish reasonable setback distances from residential properties. I know I spoke to that topic when I was here last, and I think anyone following this, industry closely could agree that more suits are being filed weekly from both residents and developers across the nation and specifically in our state. So by implementing a moratorium, that would provide Lett County commissioners and counselors more time to research the outcome of those cases, to discover what is working and or what is considered acceptable by all parties. So what is happening in negotiations where everybody leaves the table with a reasonable setback in their mind between the developers, the leasing landowners, non-participating residents. And by being able to follow these cases that are currently happening, that would allow commissioners to see which resolutions have the most potential to be effective, and also to avoid suits filed against the county by landowners, residents, and or developers, as things start to get messy. So in other words, let the mess happen over there, observe, find out what works, and use that as a precedent here, instead of us being the potential trailblazers in the midst of the mess. And realizing the benefit of allowing time for the counties ahead of us who are currently in litigation to work through that process so that we, or you as a board, have more case law to support the decisions made. This should give the board more confidence in the decision and will certainly give the people of Lebec County more confidence that due diligence will have been conducted at that point. And then my fourth concern, which I will tell you just from the observation I made in the hall and comments that I've heard here this morning, I feel good about the prospect that we're already headed in the right direction. But my concern is that we need kind of a more stable presence from the Board of Commissioners. And so given the very recent Kansas State Attorney General's investigation here regarding COMA violations and the determination that there had been a COMA violation resulting in additional commissioner training being required by the AG, it stands to reason that there is room for improvement. And in regards to the stability of the board and its communication processes, I think we need time for that improvement to be able to take place. So putting a moratorium in effect would allow that time so that the improvement can continue to happen, and that all three of you, who I truly believe are very capable, serving on this very newly formed board, can fulfill your roles as county commissioners to the best of your ability. So for all of those reasons that I've just set before you, a need for a comprehensive plan for development for our county, a need for the 3-mile protective barrier planning to be researched and take place, a need for more research into precedents regarding setback guidelines, and a need for a more stable board, I'm again requesting that a 12 to 18 month moratorium be put into effect on all industrial wind construction and development in Lebec County. It is my understanding that the current resolution drafted by Commissioner Pell is a fluid document, but that since it had been filed in its current state, it would need to be rescinded in order to be modified in any way. So the ability for that to be fluid would mean that it would have to be rescinded, modified, and resubmitted. And with that being the case, I request that current resolution be rescinded immediately, and this would allow for the moratorium to be put into effect without any conflict.
Is that your request?
That is my request.
Okay, so your request, as I understand it, Mrs. Wilson, is that this board do a moratorium, either 12 or 18 months, and also rescind the legislative resolution that was presented by Commissioner Pratt.
That is correct, with the addition that the moratorium be on both construction and development.
Okay. You know, we're gonna try to work hard to get along. I don't know if we're gonna agree on this. In fact, yes, I'm still gonna ask for a volunteer right to live with us. Somebody might get killed on the way. I think it's a fair request. I like the way you presented it. We've never had anybody come to us and ask for a moratorium, especially somebody that was informed. And I appreciate the way you conducted yourself and bringing it to our attention. And I hope it doesn't fall on deaf ears. But because of Senate Bill 13 and the changes of budgeting that's gonna happen in every county, every school district, every city, that I think a 12-month would not be long enough of a moratorium. So at this time before the board, I'm gonna make the motion based on those principles that we do a 18-month moratorium on the construction and development of wind farms, wind turbines, wind energy in Lebec County, Kansas.
Chairman, can I ask you to define development?
That's
Development.
gonna next the whole project.
What do you mean by development?
Well, tell me what I mean by development.
In my mind, development means continuing to enter into lease agreements and offer royalties to surrounding non-participating members.
We can't tell her, we don't have that authority.
Yeah, that would be,
Yeah.
that would be illegal for the county to do because we would be basically blocking interstate commerce.
Okay.
Okay.
But I'm still making a motion on development.
So-
That would be the construction and the arrangement of going ahead with the wind. That's my motion on the floor for 18 months.
But you need someone to write it. So because if you're gonna do a moratorium, you're gonna have to write it like we did previously.
You'll figure it out.
Well, here's my question. Can they seek permits from state and federal government for wildlife for the construction? Can they seek to do scientific studies, if any that they need to do? Can they, see what all federal, state requirements are and meet with, people to say, okay, we're looking at this section and we need access to go out there to perform said study, so they're gonna need a right of ingress and egress. I mean, development in my mind is very, very, very broad, and that would include their ability to contract, which would bring liability on the county.
Can I just ask one other thing?
Sure.
Is there a way to incorporate in that wording then maybe, my thoughts on that were the more they continue to have landowners lease and, the more they invest in, so if there's a moratorium on construction, then they can continue, having these agreements and arrangements, which then, according to other counties and that I've seen in litigation, then that gives them, more opportunity to sue the county
You're talking
because of
about
the
the
potential.
lines. You're talking about the lines. So, okay, in a contract system, very broadly, reliance means that one person is performing, relying upon the fact that the contract can be enforced. You're going to pay me, so in the future, so I'm relying on that while I do my work. The problem with that is this commission has never made a vote whether they're in favor of wind farms. So any property owner that makes an agreement should know they have no reliance in this county, because the commissioners have never formally said we are in favor of wind farms. Because of that, in my mind, they should not have reliance. Now, they may have a contractual reliance between themselves and RWE, but at any point in time, this commission could vote for wind farms and begin negotiations and how they're going to run, or they could completely vote against. Either way, I would tell anyone, RWE, a landowner, a contract holder, or anyone else, it's very fluid and it's all subject to change. And until there is adequate writing from the county, buyer beware. And the other thing to keep in mind is this: no matter which way the commission goes, if they're going to do this type of moratorium, your wording needs to be specific, because a moratorium for this reason, when it is not a taking, has to be for public health and safety, which you
Counselor,
can do.
I know what you're pointing is the law. You know, most of us are just lay people, okay? We do not wanna see, a lot of us do not wanna see our skyline dotted by wind turbines.
Understand.
We wanna do whatever we can to protect that. What she's asking, I think, is very simple. You know, we just put a construction and development, and if RWE wants to do something, they ask us. You know, it can't be that hard to say, hey, look, we're not in favor of wind farms. I'm not. You know, and I'll tell you, this is gonna come up a lot, because we're gonna be talking about budget. I mean, I had, you know, the budget online and all that. Okay, we're gonna be talking about a whole lot about budget. And the discussion's gonna be, well, look how much money we might get from RWE, and that'll save on tax dollars. You know, and I know Commissioner Pell's taking a lot of legwork. One of the things about having a county appraiser, nobody likes to pay taxes. But the thing we always gotta look at is that everybody is taxed equally. Everybody is assessed equally, okay? If you have wind turbines, then you're gonna have we're gonna get a lot of money off of it. You know, the county is, the school, I don't know how it's even gonna be divvied up. Because they got so much they can feather out, whether it's, you know, the schools, the counties, the roads, politicians, I don't know. But, you know, when it's all said and done, you know, I don't wanna see a few people have to bear the burden. It's just like paying taxes. It's like all of a sudden we say, everybody in Parsons is gonna have to pay double taxes because we can use the money. The few people that's in that footprint are gonna have to put up with something. Gonna have to bear something. And so they're gonna be, in essence, assessed differently than everybody else in the county. That's the way I'm looking at it, you know, and I know I've been the minority on the commission in this, and, you know. But I'd be very much in favor of putting a moratorium on. We did before, I was part of that vote. you know, even if we don't put development on it, just for construction. I mean, and they say they're not gonna have construction for
I'm
quite
not
a
saying
while.
you can't do development, I'm just saying, I need to know what my parameters are to write it, because I can't bring liability on the county.
But you need to know, you know, as me, as a commissioner, why I'm taking a stance. I don't wanna see these people have to pay more than everybody else had to put up with more. Because they're the ones gonna have to endure it. Where, everybody hates to get appraiser, everybody hates to pay taxes, everybody hates to get that tax notice in the mail. But everybody is supposed to be assessed equally. And that's the way I look at it, you know, and I know, and the reason I bring this out now, commissioners, we're gonna be looking, we deal with budgets, we're gonna be saying, boy, wouldn't it be nice if we had this, if we can milk $1 million out of that, we could save 6 meals a year. But I don't wanna look at these people and say, but the reason we're doing that because of you. And this won't even happen until I'm probably gone from office. You know, but it's gonna come up a lot when we're doing budget, because it's, Brian, the way they're doing this budget, you're not gonna be happy with it. I mean, what the state's gonna be requiring. So anyway, I'm gonna place a motion on the floor, maybe it don't make any sense, I don't care. I just know what I don't want. And I don't wanna see these people have to endure something that nobody else has to. And so I put a motion on the floor that we issue a moratorium, I'll just say moratorium at this time, for any construction for the next 18 months. And, much the same one that you did, you know, with Commissioner Allen, and I voted on that. And that's what I put on the floor. Is there a second to the motion? Is there a second to the motion? One more time, is there a second to the motion or any further consideration to be able to second the motion? Okay, it failed, but to be fair, these guys are good, I worked for Mr. Kinsey for 12 years, Commissioner Pro. Do you wanna make any statement going forward? Because you're more than welcome to.
I wanna reiterate what I've stated in the past. I'm not a yes, I'm not a no. I wanna see what they're gonna bring to the table. And I can't answer questions for them.
Excuse me for a minute, can you give Commissioner Kinsey the courtesy to listen to what he has to say?
I'm not a yes, I'm not a no. I've said this from the beginning. I wanna see what the possibilities are, and if it's worth having a new industry in the county or not. And that's my statement.
And I appreciate and respect that. I guess my understanding on that, was different since we approached them with an offer with this resolution. Rather than waiting to see what they were gonna offer, but I understand what you're saying.
Commissioner Pro, do you wish to say anything, sir?
You know, I look at to protect the landowner's rights for commerce. I look to protect the citizens from, everything else. You know, promote economic development and protect the county from litigation. The resolution that I put forward was to, excuse me?
Yeah, please go ahead, Commissioner.
It was along the strictest lines in Kansas that has held up in court or has been agreed upon, and to avoid those, you know, litigation from, like you said, from landowners to citizens to the wind farms. You know, with the 3 mile, you know, circle or zoning restrictions. Everything I have read and my research says if we didn't have zoning before they signed the first lease, or, you know, then it makes it very difficult. If it wasn't in place prior to them getting here, where it makes it a whole lot more difficult, time consuming, and so far unsuccessful in most cases.
Yeah, which was why my request for moratorium, because I think there's a lot of,
But,
cases happening now where those setbacks are
but
looking
we're
at being
not, you know,
extremely
we're not
more
really being a
protected.
trailblazer when there's numerous, you know, multiple wind farms across the country, across the world, across Kansas. You know, it's not this is not something that's new.
So like the 3,000 foot setbacks that are happening, that have been negotiated in Reno County, according to the
They're in-
commissioners,
they're
they
in-
negotiated the
they're-
3,000.
I don't know, that hasn't been agreed upon, that case is in litigation right now.
Right, so that's why I was requesting the moratorium, was in hopes that we could see, let them kind of blaze the trail, and then,
I think the
utilize
timeline
that.
will,
We'll do that. And I don't
do
think a
that.
moratorium, and I don't think the
But
moratorium.
without a
is
moratorium, they can
enforceable.
move forward, then we can get answers quicker
But if we
to
already
make a
offered
decision.
We didn't
We haven't
offer-
offered anything.
the 1,400 foot setback,
We just,
haven't
I just
offered
put that that's what.
The resolution says 1,600 feet, and at that time, and then I guess there was
Guidelines.
misunderstanding what was said. I understood it to be that RWE would not accept anything further out than 1,600 feet.
okay.
But, the reason, I try to keep this different than what they did in Neosho County. I will not allow speak unless there's something new. And I would still very much entertain somebody that has a lease that wants to come before this commission and speak. I don't deny that. The reason I allowed Mrs. Wilson, because we haven't had that request. Something new's come up, that's given cities ample opportunity to see if they wanna do a 3 mile around their community. And that, we had that power, we had that authority, and I would love to see them at least consider it. This is just more than a county decision.
Yeah. Don't disagree at all.
If we wanna do one, fine, we can do it, we'll do a moratorium if fail. That doesn't mean the city of Altamont, Mound Valley, Bartlett, or Edna can't pursue it on their own.
Exactly.
And around 3 miles, just like the city of Parsons did, they put an end to it immediately,
That was zoning that was set up years ago,
76.
76, so
So
that
it was
was,
easy for the city of Marcy to
I mean, so it
It was
Relatively.
easier,
do. Easier, relatively speaking.
but it
Because
mean,
they already had a 3 mile in place, they just added. Where these smaller cities would have to start from scratch and.
So it's
maybe-
not really an option.
But that's the reason for the
Like,
you
more-
know,
it wasn't
this is,
already in
and
place.
this is the gist of this, when I said a mile. The easiest way to get that mile would be to get an agreement between the county and RWE to agree to it in the beginning. And that's what I thought I could get. It wasn't, I have 3 miles in Parsons and I don't care about the other communities. It was like, what can I get that won't cost you as a city a fortune, that I can get, that will hold up in court, that I won't get sued with?
By the
My-
developer, sued by the developer.
Or by you, or by the landowners, or by everybody.
but it's my.
Everybody, please let me finish.
No, I
It's-
understand.
That was the best, for preliminary, plan, that was the best I thought I could do. And that's why I put that in there as a starting point. It's not set in stone.
And
And
none
wouldn't
of
it
us
be-
may, we don't all agree with it.
Yes, and if we could negotiate that with the best result would be a negotiation with the wind farm company and in the beginning. So we don't have to do the plan, the comprehensive plan, all that stuff.
Do you feel like it's likely that they're gonna negotiate further setbacks than what you propose? So okay. So the 1,600 that was written in the resolution could likely be extended out, negotiated out, that they would accept something further than that.
They'll be give and take all over the place. And I just, like I said, I took the strictest ones, the longest ones that have passed through the state of Kansas.
Okay, well, I wouldn't be protected by even the 3 mile protective barrier at my own property, so that was just a request on behalf of protecting our schools and our, more heavily populated areas. So I understand where you guys are coming from, and I guess at this point, if there is no approval of a moratorium, then, I suppose we all move forward and just remember that nobody's gonna take anything personally from here, right? That's kinda what we agreed on.
Hopefully.
Yes.
Okay.
No, the reason I allowed, got you on the agenda and everything, because we haven't anybody made that request. This recently came up about moratorium for cities as far as the 3 mile area. So the reason I made the motion was to give them opportunity, because we've had ample discussion amongst 3 of us. It's 2-1 vote, and I knew that going in. But I felt like your request was a very fair request.
I appreciate the opportunity, and I do just hope that all of us going forward
You know.
can remember to not take things personally, because it's likely, I mean, I don't think anything's intended personally, and I just hope.
I bet you're a very good English teacher.
Well, I try.
Okay, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Okay, we still have some things to do, okay, we got AP. Let's go ahead and get some of those things out that we need to talk about on the budget items. Okay, I would like to tell you that, you know, things that really got complicated with Senate Bill 13, now being implemented, some of the things we need to do. And one of the things was, it was different sessions, you know, the same speaker in different sessions that Gina and Lori attended than I did. But the one thing we all know is we need additional help in putting this together. Never done that before.